Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are diving into a topic that is quite top of mind and I think quite topical for a lot of Australian small businesses and medium businesses, which is kind of scaling tech capabilities whilst also managing costs internally depending on their size and what they're looking to outsource. So we're joined by Richard, the founder and CEO of Flexisource IT. Welcome. It's very good to have you on the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
And so you've built a business that really provides Australian companies with access to that top tier tech talent. And we'll dive into some of the other talent that you have access to overseas as well. But you also have a really interesting background in finance that we would love to dive into a little bit in the show as well. Maybe first and foremost, we can dive a little bit into your background. Obviously, quite an extensive career in finance, spanning the US and kind of other global markets. And then it's kind of led you into Flexisource IT and where you are today. But could you talk us a little bit through that background and what kind of led you to where you are?
Sure. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So I'm from New York. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up in New York, ended up working actually after doing a number of jobs after university. I actually, through a friend, I joined a training program towards Wall Street. So I did the whole Wall Street training. Then we're talking about early 90s, 91 around there, and became a licensed broker, worked Wall Street, did that for a number of years. I ended up having a client who was based out of Paris. So it was running a hedge fund out of Europe, and we were doing really well. Had a great rapport, and he actually, after a number of years working together, invited me and asked me if I was interested in joining on the buy side and moving to Asia. At that point, we were really. He was really focused on what they called the tiger economies of Asia, which was mostly Hong Kong, Singapore, but some of the other countries. And it was really about investing into the share markets in those countries. So my travel took me over to Hong Kong, probably about 6 months before they had the Asia financial crisis, which was probably poor timing. But eventually I ended up going back to Hong Kong, then went to Singapore, spent a year in Geneva, Switzerland as well, just covering global equity markets for a European hedge fund. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. And then obviously you've come to Australia as well.
Yeah. So during my time when I went to, during my time in New York, when I was working there, I actually had a girlfriend who was Australian. And when I moved to Hong Kong, after the markets crashed in Hong Kong, I came to Australia. I spent about a year in Australia, and really just trying to figure out what my next step was. And I fell in love with Australia. I just loved it, and the food, the culture, the outdoor life. For me, it was different, obviously different. There's nothing like New York, but if you've lived there your whole life, it's, it was pretty amazing, I thought, being here in Australia. And that's what led me coming back. So eventually married an Australian and have been living here for the better part of the last 30 years.
Great. That's amazing. Do you still go to America quite a bit? Obviously you've got family and stuff over there.
Yeah, not quite as much. My mom passed away last year. So my brother, I've got cousins and uncles, but to be honest, when I travel and if I have the opportunity, I'd rather go places I haven't been before.
Yep.
So that really excites me, is discovering new places and traveling to other places. Like I said, America is amazing. I was there last year for extended time, and each city has its own sort of different personality, and that's what I guess why people just go there. And it's America is not just New York or as my wife thought it was, all New York, because you become New York centric. But all the cities have their own personality and something to offer. But I suppose I'm mostly looking at places in ancient history, old history, and that's really a bit of a passion for me. So
amazing. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine, sounds like you've traveled for work and kind of lived in a few different places. Is it getting harder to find different areas or different cities you haven't been to before?
No, not at all. There's, I keep hearing some amazing places and places that, you wouldn't think of in, particularly Eastern Europe. A lot of places in Eastern Europe that have beautiful beaches. Even going to the Philippines, where my business is, haven't had the opportunity to travel to the Philippines as much as you might think, because whenever I'm there, I'm usually there working. But I've just recently went on on my own and went diving to some remote place about 3 hours outside of Cebu. Didn't really know much about it. And it was amazing. So there's tons of places to discover.
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds like you've lived a very exciting life.
It sounds it, but it's like Facebook,
Yes,
or Instagram.
There's a highlight reel.
It's like Instagram. Yeah, there's a lot of highlight reels, but then there's a lot of hard work and day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to dive into Flexisource a little bit more, what does Flexisource do, and what kind of problems does it solve for Aussie businesses?
Sure. So look, I mean, I've always been involved, particularly when I was in finance, was involved in IT, and one of the areas that I've always saw, particularly here in Australia, is the issues with obviously high cost of labor, shortage of labor oftentimes, and quite honestly, outsourcing was a struggle for a lot of companies. I found most CFOs or CEOs that I spoke to in big companies just told me about all the poor performance, poor results they've had out of it. And I always thought, why would you want to take something as important as your tech, which nowadays every company is tech. It doesn't matter what they do. If you're a supermarket or retail or whatever it is, tech is one of your biggest costs. Why would you send it off to someone else to tell you how to operate it? And there was also a lot of changes, I think, in the way people were developing. Agile development was a big phrase everyone was using, and the way you go about developing was a new process that I think made it easier for remote people to do it. So really what we've done is created a model which is much more of an augmentation model, if you will, which is dedicated remote staff, but much more all focused on tech, but really focused on working with Australians and providing a technical project management team that actually helps overcome a lot of the typical problems that do come from offshoring or outsourcing.
Cool. To take a step back, how did the idea come up, and run us through that journey from start to today?
Well, that's a bit of a painful story, to be honest. But look, the Philippines came up because when I was in Asia, I had traveled to the Philippines. And look, I knew of the Philippines because for over 100 years, it was really like a U.S. colony almost. The U.S. had their military bases there. So I knew they all spoke English, and actually all businesses conducted in English. So it made it very easy to travel there. And I knew that they were really growing, particularly for outsourcing for call center people. I think they're now even bigger than India in the world. So when I went to the Philippines, I actually had somebody I knew, a friend from New York, who actually had some people working in the Philippines doing tech to New York. And we ended up working together to begin starting this process. This was right after the global financial crisis. So I was looking to kind of make a career pivot and really looking for something a bit more meaningful, something that, I felt finance was great. I had some great times, but it didn't provide me anything tangible in terms of meaning in my life. And when I got to the Philippines, I met some amazing people. And I started this business in partnership with this friend of mine from New York. And that's how we kicked it off. Unfortunately, partnerships are a tricky thing, particularly if your business partner is dipping into the till. So I basically had to restructure the company after building up for about 2 years and really working with some great clients. And really, so for me, I was kind of sold on the concept. I had, I guess, 2 years experience working with great companies in Australia, well-known brands, and spending multiple trips to the Philippines, and really loved the people and felt that it was, a really valued idea. And it's been really the last 10 years has been taking that and growing it and making it better.
Yeah, excellent. Would you be comfortable to dive deeper into that breakup, or did you just want to leave it at that? Because it's a very common thing.
No, look, it is. And what I would tell somebody who does go into a partnership, never allow yourself to go below 50% on that partnership. That was my mistake. We were 50-50 partners. he talked me into having somebody who was on the ground there, who was the manager, and said we should give him a stake in the company because he's on the ground and so forth. What I didn't know is this person was a friend of his. Yep. Once you become subjugated less than 50%, you really don't have control of the business. Mm-hmm. So if it's your business, and that's where a lot of companies, particularly when they raise capital and so forth, you lose board seats. I've known people who've started companies and they've been fired from the company they started because they've given that up. So yeah, that would be, I guess, my advice is, if you're, back yourself, and go ahead and don't give up more than 50% on the equity.
And it's so true, regardless of the size of your business, whether it's just 2 people or if there's 100, those concepts apply.
1,000%.
Because everyone's goal, most people's goal in business is to grow and scale their business, and you need to make sure that you've teamed up with the right person and you're covered at the end of the day. Because if you've spent X amount of years building this thing up and then the rug can be pulled from under you, lack of a better term, then yeah, it can be tough. But it does happen. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. So just, couldn't agree more. Setting
absolutely.
It up properly from the start, shareholders agreements, all of that type of stuff.
100%. Definitely, get your legal right in the beginning. Do your due diligence. Unfortunately, the person who I worked with was a lawyer, and that's where I fell into it. Yeah. So he was covering the legal aspects. So look, you could call it ignorance or mistake, but look, we all make mistakes, and hopefully, we learn from those mistakes, and hopefully it's not too big a mistake that you can't bounce back from.
Yeah.
I think for me, the greatest, and it builds a lot of anger and resentment because it was a friend of mine, but my wife said to me, your greatest revenge will be your own success. And that's what I'm still striving for in the business is, to make it successful, however that's defined by whoever it is.
Yeah. Excellent. That's a great way to put it. A great way to look at it too. Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. So obviously starting a business, especially one that has like an international component, you've kind of listed a few challenges already, but what are some of those hurdles that you faced in the early days, and how did you kind of move through those?
Yeah, look, I think again, it's finding the right people. That's always the hard part. I've been fortunate for that my country manager, who's now my COO, has been with me now for 10 years. She comes from a strong background from IBM, worked for QBE, had good background, and was a strong operator. So I think that's obviously, if you're remote, you need somebody who's a strong operator that you can count on, and the leadership capability. One of the things in the Philippines, which I think is often noted, is that people tend to be, the Filipinos tend to be a bit more deferential. They are a more hierarchical system, so they don't raise their hand as leadership as easily as somebody in Australia. So I think that's one of the big things. I've been fortunate to find some strong leadership, a great HR person who builds, a real people culture. And then I think it's about treating people right and, treating them, building that flat culture, that flat management style that I think Australia is really great at, and kind of incorporating that and blending it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm keen to dive into that a little bit more too. But I guess when people think about outsourcing, quite often people go straight to like web development and tech and those kinds of things. But I'd love to kind of chat through the full spectrum of roles that you have on offer. Yeah,
so web development, I guess you think is like, most people think, building websites, and we've got people who do that, but I guess ours are more hardcore engineers. So most of the clients that we work with are building product, SaaS and enterprise software. And as I might have mentioned earlier, every company now has a huge IT team. It's their business is IT. Whatever they're selling or whatever their product is, it's a foundation of it, particularly now with things like cloud. So some of the resources that we'll have, the beauty is the Philippines has great education and a really good diverse skill set. So without, I guess, throwing different coding languages out, but it's sort of the coding languages that are the most current ones today. Things like Node, Python, which really is one of the big leaders in AI technology. So things like SQL and Python, those are some of the big coding things, but things like DevOps or people who are involved in your, QA is a big one. Testing is a really big thing that people overlook, particularly in the development space, because they're on a speed to market. So they don't build that foundation of testing, and in the long run, it'll save you money. So things like that. Designers is a big one. And we also have a full digital marketing team as well that we've kind of built, of about 15 people that works with our existing clients as well as a sort of on-demand resource to help them out. So yeah, it's pretty diverse, but it's mostly in that high-end tech space.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. And the marketing team that you touched on as well, is that something that you found it was conversations and like feedback that you were getting from your existing clients that they were like, do you know anyone in this space? And is that why you built it out, or more of a complementary sort of service?
Yeah, it was much more complementary. I just actually found I didn't know marketing. I was really poor at it and failed for many years. And through a friend who was a marketing manager at a big listed gaming company, he helped me out. He interviewed people for me, and he pointed out. He said, introduced me to one of the guys that I interviewed. Bernard said he's a gun, and he's been with me now for over 5 years. So he's really built up our marketing and our brand, and we've done a lot of branding. And then I found that a lot of the clients that I had, the biggest expense obviously is IT and marketing, getting their brand out. So it was sort of complementary. So a lot of, particularly the startups and SMEs, we were able to offer it as an on-demand service, because most of these companies may only have one person in marketing. And these days, running marketing is not a one-man or woman operation. It really needs a wide variety of skill sets. So it sort of became a complementary feature to help help these companies grow. Because that's really what we want to do as a partner, not just help them develop their product, but certainly help them get the word out there, and help. The more they grow, the more we grow. So it's a complementary process.
Sort of service that you're putting together.
For sure. Yeah. For sure.
I saw on the website there's also support services as well.
Yeah, so mostly it's in the tech support service. Okay. So we really focus on that. Look, a lot of my clients, we support them in everything, including accounting, which you have. We've got a few people who've got accounting or compliance or, various other admin roles. And we're happy to help them out with those roles. We find I don't want to say cookie cutter, but they're a lot easier to fill in those roles, to find those people. A lot of the roles that we're looking for mostly are high-end tech people, so we really have to, tech them out ourselves. Before we endorse them to any clients, we have our tech leads, really interview them and question them, make sure that they're the skilled, have that skill set. We're in a lot of times people who are accountants or in admin, you could ask them a handful of basic questions and understand their competency.
I couldn't agree more. That interview process for us, especially, I'm sure the development side is much more technical, but it's really important to make sure that, one, character fit, and two, that they can actually do the work as well.
And then three, it's the attitude as well. And that I think is the biggest thing. And particularly in some of the roles, like you mentioned, the support roles, I'd say the support roles attitude is much more important than the skill sets off of it. Even in some of the tech support, we've had people who are those level 1 tech support people. And I think it's people who take the time, their spare time, to actually improve their craft. Those people are the ones that you want to keep. And, they're the ones who our clients want to keep. And that's what we try to do, is not only find the right people for them, but build sort of that long-term partnership where those people can grow their careers and, stay with the client for a long time. And, most of our staff have been with the clients for years.
Would you say that's one of the benefits of using a business like yourself as opposed to going direct to market, where there is that screening and the process that you guys would have to make sure that all the candidates are top quality?
Yeah, so definitely the screening. I mean, we've got a recruitment team of 6 people, and they're all tech. So the recruitment team are really awesome. But beyond that, we also have our tech leads, depending on the skill set. They do a lot of the screening as well, so that we make sure before any clients, the clients interview, they could tech them, they could give them exams and whatnot. But before they ever see them, one of the things, the biggest compliments that our team always gets is that every candidate that we provide, or most every candidate, is really suitable for the role. So we understand what the roles are, we understand what they'll be doing on a day-to-day basis, and we understand really, try to put people that have a good fit for them culturally as well. Because we want them to be not only a fit for our culture in Flexisource, but we also very much want them to be part of the client's culture. And we need to sometimes help the client to share that as well.
Mm. Yeah, which we were talking a little bit earlier about, you've done some trips over to the Philippines, and you've done, like events with the team. And I guess that culture component is such an important part of like staff retention, but also, like you said, fitting into the culture of the company that they're working for, and making sure that the company is kind of replicating that as well. And also responding in a way that connects with the employees. So how do you build, and how have you focused on building such a strong culture? Because you've got quite a lot of employees now. You've been around for a long period of time. How have you done that?
Look, I'd love to take credit for it, but really, it's the people, the management team that I have.
Yeah,
we've got a really well established. Plus, I suppose I do set a tone because I'm very easy to talk to. The staff talk to me. They reach out to me oftentimes for different things. We have a lot of. We made sure that when we built our HR team into a people and culture team, one of the things that we've done is, particularly after COVID, when it was really hard to attract talent, is we really provide them really good benefits by working with Australian clients. They're working day shift. So the hardest part is to find the top talent and then to keep them. So I would always advise, we really want to pay the staff members in the Philippines a fair, like they get a good wage certainly relative to it. Your savings might be, 50, 60, 70%, but relative to it, they get a fair wage. And to be honest, I would always tell them I would advocate for them to get them a good wage, because if they're not earning market wage, you're not going to keep them long. So if they're comparable to the market, and their quality, and the clients, every year they come, we give them a nudge and say, hey, this person's been with you for a year. Is there an increase? And we do quarterly reviews, performance reviews, training, a lot of things like that. So it's having them feel that we are backing them, and we do. And then we have a project management team who are technical, who oversee the staff and work with the clients to really make sure they're performing well. And we provide, particularly a lot of the earlier companies that don't have processes in place, we share with them our best practices and processes we've done. And then we try to incorporate it into their culture and what they're doing, so that there's a long-term synergy together.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, you've just explained it really. Like, we talk on the podcast quite a bit about like team culture and management, and like how to retain staff. And it's all of the same principles, obviously, and making sure that, I think when I had a look at your website, you've got like all your company values on there as well, and like innovation, and you spoke about like training and upskilling, and that's a really big part of your company, and the teams that you've built as well. What are some examples of how you guys do really drive that innovation in your space?
Look, again, I'd like to say that it's, things like generative AI and all of those type of things, but really those are tools. So a lot of it, again, it's communication. We now actually, just before I stepped into this podcast, we were having we have a weekly meeting with the managers, and we talk about things, some of the tools we could be doing, some of the things we've learned from different clients, because a lot of the biggest innovation, like such as AI, are being utilized by different clients, and there's thousands of tools out there now, and everyone's but you have to kind of dip in and try everything. So we have so many clients who are using AI or building tools, and most of it is integrations. So something like ChatGPT can help you, get the answer to a question, which is, even for developers, is great, but it doesn't help you conceptualize how do I use that. So we want our people to actually understand, it's sort of like doing a math problem. You could get the answer right, but your teacher will always say, show me the work that got you the answer, so that you know how you got there. So we do things like that. We talk about the concepts behind it. For development, our tech lead is doing university courses. We've gone to a number of universities and given university lectures to juniors or seniors there who become our interns. A lot of it, we do brown bag sessions. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's just a learning session. So we have different volunteers with different skill sets who generally monthly or sometimes twice a month will get different people talk about what does it mean to do, like, for instance, we have one of our project manager, she's a BA, and she's also been a product owner. And she's actually over in San Francisco right now. And she's been attending a few events over there, plus her boyfriend over there. But she just did a brown bag session about being both a BA and a product owner in different types of environments, so that people, the staff could go ahead and see about career opportunities. A lot of people, I find, they say, I'm just a developer. And I'm like, you're never just that. Be proud of what you do and, work on your skills and be really good at it. And it's not, and because of their culture, I think it's a lot like one of the guys who we just gave a big increase to, and he became a senior developer on my team, said, I really want to make you proud of it. And I was really touched by that. But to me, it's I really want you to be proud of yourself, because you should. You did put the work in. So those are the type, I guess I kind of went off track on innovation a bit, but it's about continuous learning. And for me, I guess why I got into, why I really enjoy what I'm doing is I feel like I'm making a difference. I feel that the team that I have and the people have, I make a difference in their life, but they're learning as well. And for me, I'm learning to be a CEO, I guess, or a leader, or whatever you want to call it. But it's a learning.
Everyone talks about the cost savings, but what's the hidden value that small businesses can unlock if they were to partner with yourself and your business?
Yeah. So look, one of the big things, and I think I touched on it, is the cost savings. Like I said, it'll be 50%, 60, 70%, particularly because, the way we do it, it's based on the person who you choose, and it's an all-in cost per month. So we just bill on a monthly basis. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that people will make is that they're rushing to find the cheapest.
Yeah.
And I think there is something about you get what you pay for on it. And, there are places where you're going to have to sacrifice something to be cheaper. Is it that the person who you have is not going to have the reliability, or you're not going to have any oversight? Or if that person leaves, I've heard stories where you'll have somebody developing your work, and then that person leaves for $5 more an hour, and you've got a junior guy stepping in and has to pick it up. So I guess the real value is, look, our attrition rate is less than 2%. So people stay. If they do leave, it's generally because they've migrating overseas. That's been the biggest thing in the last few years, why people have left us. I think our project management team makes us a real difference. A lot of companies, they'll get you a staff member, and that person could be great, and that's fabulous. But it's how do they overcome obstacles? And I think our project managers are really good because they're technical. They're not a sales rep. They're people who come from a background of development or business analyst or technical, that they understand how to look at at an issue. Could be something like, having to fix a bug. Why is somebody taking so long doing it? Is there a process in there? So we could help create processes to overcome a lot of obstacles, and the good clients, I think, are the best clients, are the ones who share those problems with us early rather than get frustrated and don't say anything. So it's about communication.
Yeah. What are some of those, you sort of spoke about, I guess, some of the concerns maybe that some of the businesses or clients have when they come on board with you? What are some of the main concerns that you see that pop up?
Yeah, look, again, I've never done outsourcing, or
Yes.
I've never done, that always comes up. And look, I think one of the things that I would say is you could start off small. You could start with one person, whatnot. You don't have to go ahead and build a big team. But I think the thing is to really commit to it if you're going to do it. Don't do it half-cocked. Go ahead and commit, which means, before that person onboards, like you would, have an onboarding process, share your product, what you're trying to achieve. I think you've talked quite a bit about this on podcasts before, and it always rings a bell to me, is don't just ask them about the what they're doing, ask them the why, and have that, and explain to them, what the end product is. So, developers, like anyone else trying to solve a problem, if you know what the end result that you want to achieve is, you could think about how do we go ahead and get there. So I think that's a big thing. If you have documentation for startups and early stage is always a hard one. You're in the rush to get a product out and turn revenue, and you probably haven't documented everything as well, and it's hard to explain to somebody what your code does. So we could work with a lot of clients on how do we do that and pull that out. A lot of what our guys do is also freeing up the onshore people from writing, I guess in a technical term, writing user stories, which is basically, if we understand what your requirements are, we could help the developers or your QAs or the team achieve what you want to achieve. It's about communicating with us. So I think that's been one of the real values that we've been able to add that I think really, that I'm probably most proud of.
I can speak from the point of someone who uses a similar service to what you guys do, and it's just so important to have those processes and treat them like an actual team member, even though they could be halfway across the world. Like for us anyway, our process, they're all part of our weekly team meetings. These are our processes, and now our overseas team members, our more senior ones, are helping us bring on the new staff members and helping with training, and these are the processes and these are the systems. So it's just I couldn't agree with you more about having those processes and systems in place from the start.
Yeah.
Then you just continue to build on them.
But look, it's also really great to see those things, those processes changing as well, because we learn so much from our clients as well, who have their own unique processes, and then we say, well, this client is doing this, and that's been really effective, so we could apply that across to other people and to other clients and make those suggestions. So, I think there's no one cookie cutter way to do it, but you kind of learn quite a bit from a diverse range of clients, both more mature clients who have really structured processes, as well as that startup mentality of like, we just got to get it done.
Yeah. And that's one of the big advantages to using a company like yourself, is you can leverage your network and your customer network on how these bigger businesses, how they run things and how they do their projects.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had our QA manager, test manager, just had a seminar, brought together all of our QAs across, 50 or 60 QAs across multiple teams. And they talked about not only the different tools they use, all the new tools coming in, there are a lot of free tools, but also how do you approach problems? How do you create automation is one of the biggest things that everyone is looking at. So it's about how do we do automation and, addressing those type of issues. So yeah, we're still, I guess, you're still learning on it. We're still learning on how, all the best processes that we have, we still have to tweak it and customize it for every client.
Mm-hmm. I think, you mentioned earlier as well, just kind of backtracking a little bit, the vision and like getting people bought into the why and not just the what because there's a lot of people that can do the what. But usually the top tier work comes out of people that have bought into and understand the why and why you're doing it, whether it be your business, like your business vision, or clients in particular, a particular project, what that kind of final outcome is, that the desire for the customer, the end user. And then if you can get people bought into that, then because maybe that process will change, maybe the workflow will change, maybe the way that that particular product or service was being built out might change as a result of what that end user is looking for. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it's a great thing when clients bring our team in as well. And, let's say they just did a new product release, and it was really well received, and they're all high-fiving. The guys locally are going out for drinks, and our guys are as well. And, they feel part of the success of the company. And that's what we really want our people to be, part of your success. And I think as a business, some of, I guess, the value that's come for me personally is to see some of our clients really grow and really kicking goals and being, going from a small Australian company to a global company. And that's been awesome.
That's amazing. And do you have a particular client that you work best with, or is it like e-commerce, like software, so anything?
Look, it's amazing how different they are. Look, we've sort of worked with a lot of sports tech companies, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
Fintech, obviously, everything. Finance, there's a big thing with loyalty rewards. That's obviously gamification, loyalty. Supermarkets, we've worked with a lot of real estate companies, companies were real estate adjacent. There's just so many different types of companies, and like I said, everything is tech with what they're doing. So it's been, for me, it's really interesting as well. It's a learning curve, learning different businesses. And I guess that's probably the value. Some of the value that I could really understand is what they're trying to achieve as a business. And I've worked with, from corporate finance days, working with companies that are trying to grow their business and how do they go about it. So sort of that training as well, mentoring off of it, and being able to, I guess, share their journey with a lot of early stage companies and be a partner in the delivery of it.
That's amazing. You've spoken quite a lot about automations, and it is definitely something that we're seeing a lot of businesses talking about. It's sort of like the it's what like clickbaity kind of, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but yeah, it's kind of what everyone's talking about at the moment. But is there any other, I guess, big changes that you're seeing, that conversations that are happening, any particular trends that you're seeing sort of creep into the market?
Look, again, automation is definitely one of those things. And I guess AI and, connected with it, but they kind of go hand in hand, I think. I know that you've talked about that before with different CRMs and how do you go ahead and utilize that for both your marketing purposes, but also as a tool for your business. So I think it's less about creating the next great AI product. A lot of people come into things and saying that they've got to, create the next Facebook or the next, it's like the next window wiper, the small bit that is overlooked is a value add proposition. And I think really it's going to be a lot of automation and AI to create those small step value adds that I think will make different businesses stand out. And I think you're seeing a lot of that with just your podcast as well. For instance, micro targeting, everything is about data, so you are reaching the right audience. So I think that's what a lot of these tools are doing, is creating really unique data that's being evaluated through AI, that's helping you make the best decisions on how to grow your business.
Absolutely. And how can people work with you? Is it typically is it a project-based model? Is it an ongoing model? Earlier you said month to month. What's the sort of arrangement that people could get involved with?
Yeah, look, it's long term, because the reality is if you're building a product particularly, the idea is that life cycle of that product is not going to end.
Ideally.
Yeah, ideally. And,
Yeah.
and generally, if you do build that product, there's still a sense of maintenance that always has to occur, or new features that you want to add later on. So it tends to be more ongoing. The way we structure it, though, is we try to take a lot of that fear and that risk out. So there's really no upfront costs. It's a conversation to understand the business, what you're trying to achieve, a conversation with our recruitment team to really understand the right people that you're looking for, along with our project managers to understand or our BA to understand your business on a holistic view, what you're trying to achieve. We don't do any billing until we've actually hired the right person for you, and actually once they've started, so we bill you afterward. In the Philippines, they are probationary for the first 6 months, so we focus on full-time employees. The reason being, they'll be more loyal. They get we give them really great benefits. So we're one of the areas that's been useful in us retaining talent is providing them really strong healthcare benefits. And then after 6 months, they started accruing other government benefits, such as what they call a 13th month, which is like a Christmas bonus, if you will, but it's a mandatory process. So most of it is long-term. It's billing on a month for month. We do oftentimes, through our digital marketing team, we could help people on an ad hoc basis, hourly or project base. We also have a handful of juniors. We're building internal products as well. We do that as well. Just it's a training ground rather than juniors and interns learning based on YouTube or Udemy. They're actually working on an actual product, and so we build products that are useful for us rather than buying off the shelf products. And, those people, once they sort of graduate that as juniors, we often utilize them for some of the projects that we do, smaller projects, with the oversight of our tech lead or our project manager who does code review and makes sure they're really, hitting the mark. So it's, it's both approaches, but obviously we want to build long-term clients and really make a difference in your business.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
As someone I've both gone directly to market and then use a business very similar to yours, I could not recommend to any of our listeners, I'd strongly recommend to use a business like yourself, because going direct to market, there's a whole abundance of issues that can arise. In just my own experience, where are they actually working? Is their internet good enough? Do they have the right equipment? Are they working for other people at the same time? It's things that I've seen happen. And there's also that security piece as well, especially when they're working on their back-end tech and data and all of the, all the stuff that I'm not going to say take for granted, but all the stuff that we just expect to happen when we're here in person. Businesses like yours are, in my opinion, are non-negotiable. So couldn't recommend it enough as someone who does use outsourcing.
I think that's probably also a really good point that you raise, is the security issue. Is huge. Everyone's always worried about, stealing code. And to be honest, I've never heard that out of the Philippines, things of that nature. But I mean, the idea is that all of the IP is the client's IP.
Yes.
We purchase brand new computers, equipment for all of our staff members. So they start off with, and then we have our security team do security encryption. Oftentimes, it might even be a direct VPN line to the client. So the client has all access to turn on and off that security part, where if you get like a freelancer as well, and then, how do you know that your job is their priority?
Correct.
Same through Inflection, but also through other organizations. We've used, again, similar businesses like yourself, but we've also gone direct to market. And the contrast in the quality of output, the retention, but then also having essentially a team, and we had a team manager over there, and they all came into the office when they could, depending on weather and those kinds of things, but would come into the office and they were part of the team. And when we did Christmas parties, there was Christmas parties, and it was just the relationship. You actually got to know them. It wasn't just an external team that which, you know, can still happen here as well. If you have someone remote, it's sometimes that connection can be hard to develop.
Sure.
But I think it's such an important part of, getting the right work done for clients, but also having a team that you trust, or having a team that's a part of your team that you're welcoming into the organization as just as much, I think is super important as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the face-to-face of, you know, we encourage all of our clients to come out to the Philippines. We'll look after you. We've got clients who were just there last week. Yeah. We've got ones coming next month. And also bringing some of those staff onshore. Clients bring them on for their Christmas party. We help facilitate all of their visas and all of that. And that's, you know, and I personally have taken many of them out for dinner or down Great Ocean Road for a travel or whatnot, just to see some of the things. It's a great thing to share with, you know, with your team members and bond off of it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, we used to send all of our like company merch, like hats and notebooks, and the same, like we used to do an onboarding box for everyone that came into the company. And so the onboarding box was the same box that was received over there. It was just obviously had to be kind of sent a little bit in advance, not like in person. We could just whack it together at 8:30 before that person walked in the door. We just had to be a little bit more organized. Yeah,
that's a great point of Philippine culture. They love their merch.
Do you have any advice for small business owners that are, I guess, on the edge of outsourcing and not sure if they should or if they shouldn't do it?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's probably, you know, make a commitment, give it a try. Also, if it doesn't work out, think about it like, you know, your girlfriend. if you had one girlfriend and it didn't work out, that doesn't mean you're never going to date again.
Yeah, correct.
Maybe she wasn't the right one for you. And that's not to say that we're the perfect fit for every client either. I mean, we fit for a certain type of client as well. And it's a collaborative. If you're looking for, you know, just a body to work, there's a lot of companies out there that could put, you know, warm bodies in seats. So it's about finding the right fit. But I think for them, it's do the research. I, you know, would say, you know, look at Google reviews, look what the staff say about it and the people say about it. That's probably one of the things that we're most proud of is the people that we have stay for a long time and by and large have had great things to say about the management team and the culture that we have. And that we are, you know, you respect the people that you work with as equal. They're not offshore. It's not, you know, a lesser. They're being paid relative to their living conditions in their market. So, you know, pay them their overtime if they're working on Saturdays. Yeah. Don't try to, you know, and you'll get what you give.
Yeah.
I know that with the Filipinos that I've come in, why I love it is that the more you give to them, they will go on the line and work nonstop to get something done if you believe in them and you share with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll have a link in the show notes as well on how to get in touch with Flexisource. Now, if you're listening and you're on your computer or you're on your phone, you can jump on their website, flexisourceit.com.au, jump into the Contact Us button in the top right corner, and then you'll be prompted to fill out all of your information. Send the message and then someone will reach out. Alternatively, if someone did want to reach out to you directly, I believe.
Well, yeah, look, any of the emails, I'm the one who actually has a look at it. It's not a sales team. And you could also call through 1-300-775-200. That'll come directly to me, and I'm more than happy to go ahead and talk about what you're trying to achieve and how we could help.
Excellent.
Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so great to chat to you, and I really appreciate it. I know Jordan and I both do, and I'm sure everyone that's listening does really appreciate your journey and you sharing those stories of your experience, but then also really diving into Flexisource and what you guys are doing there. Just sounds really fantastic, and you've grown, which is such a huge credit to you and the team that you've developed. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.